So, afternoon, everyone. My name is Jess. Really excited to be hosting today's debate on should we invite AI into our teams and organizations to improve agility. So we've got some pretty awesome speakers lined up for today. Jas, if you want to give a wave, Director of Agile Coaching at 5AI. Ricardo, Principal Consultant at Solid Reason, and then Adam, Principal Technologist and great colleague of mine at And Digital. So a little about me for those who I haven't met. I'm the Agile Coach at And Digital, and I've been coaching for the last 4.5 years across diverse industries and clients. You may hear an Australian accent as I made the move to London mid last year, but thrilled to be newly part of the organising team at Agnostic Agile and hosting my first meetup today. So for those of you who haven't been to Agnostic Agile event before, welcome. Agnostic Agile was created with a fundamental belief that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to agility, which is something I'm really passionate about. So Agnostic Agile's principles serve as a reminder of what it means to be in service of agility and to put our clients' best interests, context, and pursuit of outcomes ahead of framework preferences. Agnostic Agile community is all about learning, sharing, growing together. And so we hope today's meetup is an opportunity for all three of these. So how the next hour will work, we're going to kick off with a poll to understand whether you'll welcome AI into your teams and organizations to improve agility by the end of the year. And then we're going to have 3 8-minute lightning debates. So Jas will debate both sides of why we should and shouldn't bring AI into our teams and organizations to improve agility. Ricardo is going to debate why we absolutely should, and Adam is going to close the debate with why we shouldn't. And then we'll open up for Q&A for around 20 minutes, so get ready with your burning questions. And then we're going to close with the same poll to kind of understand whether your views have changed throughout the debate. So let's kick off with the poll. I'm going to get Jas to share his screen for me, which is great. I'm just going to put a link into the chat for everyone so you can easily click on it and cast your poll view. So essentially head to slido.com and the code word is agility. So if you could pull out a browser or get it out on your phone, whichever one is easiest. And then we want you to cast your vote on, by the end of this year, I'll happily welcome AI into my team and organization to improve agility. So 1 is absolutely no way, I'm not going to do that. And 10 is absolutely I'm going to by the end of the year. We just want to see like where the audience sits before we kick off the debate, and see if this changes by the end of the debate. So at the moment, we're sitting at 6.7. I can see only 13 of you are in there. So hopefully we can get most of the people on the call, 30 or so people on the call, into there to cast their votes. Give it another 30 seconds. Still averaging at 6.8, 6.9. Okay, we'll take that 6.8, 6.9 to kick off the debate, and then we'll see kind of at the end of the debate whether these views have changed. As you can see on the Slido, we're going to be using this for questions and answers when we move into the panel. So if you go into the Q&A part, just right next to poll, Jas, if you could click on the Q&A on the top. Yeah, there you go. Type your questions into here and vote with your thumbs up on which questions you want us to prioritize for the panel discussion later on. I popped in 2 that I was interested in to get the discussion going, but you can vote those up, put your new ones in, and we'll be using for those for the panel discussion later. So I guess let's get to the debate. We've got lots to get through today. First up is Jas, who's going to be exploring both sides of whether we should or shouldn't bring AI into teams and organizations to improve agility. 8 minutes is on the timer. Over to you, Jas.
Thanks, Jess. So I'm gonna start now. Hang on a minute. Is my 8 minutes starting? There we go. Yes, so I'm Jas Singh. I look after agility for 5AI, which is now part of the Bosch Group. I'm going to go through a little bit about kind of why we should invite teams into invite AI into our teams to improve agility, and then I'm going to take the sort of on the fence position. So I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm also a professional coach, so you may not get as many answers as you get questions, and you may also guess where my biases lie as well. So what do we mean by agility? So really, agility is about creating value. To be able to collaborate more effectively within and across our teams to create value for our customers, for the products that they use, to form close connections with our customers, to create fast feedback loops, to be able to iterate, and along the way to have some fun and to grow as individuals as well. Agility changes and its needs change, and I wanted to sort of use a word that I think a lot of you might be familiar with, VUCA, which was used by the US Army College to explain kind of the environment after the end of the Cold War. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think that's kind of the environment that we're in at the moment. Each of those you can kind of look at in terms of being volatile. You need to kind of look at how you react to a constantly changing environment. Things that are uncertain, you need to know how to make better decisions about the products that we have, how we build them, and the interactions that we have, complexity, so many moving parts that we have. How do you sort of navigate that steady path? What helps us remove that fog of thinking when things are ambiguous and not quite predictable as we may want them to be? Alongside these, you need to consider other questions. So where is the waste in what we do? What takes up effort and energy that isn't directly delivering value? How do we minimize, depending on how you look at it, cognitive load? We want to spend as much time as possible on the problem space and co-creating solutions. Therefore, we want to minimize and automate the things that the customer doesn't care about. And there's lots of movements here: DevOps, CI/CD, just writing better code, making it more simplistic and more efficient. We want to make sure that we shift our capacity for thinking into the problem space, i.e. what we're building rather than kind of how we're building it. How do we embrace the tools that help us to do that to improve efficiency? And over the last few years, we've seen with the pandemic, explosion of those sort of productivity tools, like what we're using today: Zoom, Google Meet, Slack, Miro, etc. So AI is just another tool, right? Well, it is. There's a whole raft of different tools, from things like chatbots, ChatGPT, to machine learning platforms like TensorFlow, etc., for image recognition. But in general, AI improves the speed at which we can gather information. How AI can help us analyze vast amounts of data really quickly, provide actionable insights, and we can use that to make informed decisions rapidly about what's happening in a changing market. With our changing customer preferences, we can collect that data through many different ways. So using AI through Jira, Confluence, GitHub, data lakes, whatever we want to do, AI seems to be able to do that. We can analyze that data and use the foresights that we gain from there to make proactive adjustments to our processes as teams, to the way we communicate, and to our interaction modes. Helps improve our faster feedback loops with stakeholders, customers, and gets us towards that sort of higher performance. Considering cognitive load, just want to touch on that a little bit more. And there's basically the three types: intrinsic, extrinsic, and germane. And that, if you've ever come across team topologies, that's explained in there a little bit about how to create high-performing teams. I believe AI tools are really there to help eliminate, if possible, extrinsic cognitive load, help us reduce as much as possible we can the intrinsic, and focus on the germane, which is really about the problem space. And here, this is where we kind of become the customer in terms of AI and tools. We don't really care about sharing data. We don't care about analyzing, storing data, trying to draw conclusions. We just want to take actions that will help improve our teams. And leave the hard work to AI. On the flip side, I've worked with many organizations with people who are way smarter than I am, building, and there are some really fundamental building blocks to to how agility can help us improve. And Google did the Project Aristotle, which you can Google, looked at 180 teams over 2 years. And the key thing that came out of that, and I know there was 5 different aspects, but the top of that list was psychological safety. So create an environment of trust, healthy debate, and collaborative action was really the basis for building these incredible high-performing teams. Those are all human traits. It's not really where I think AI is strong. Building human relationships. Building strong human relationships was great for generating creative ideas and helping people motivate towards improving the products or the teams that they were in. And it's all about the humans doing the heavy lifting. Again, not really much for AI to do there. And also, as human beings, we have this sort of ancient need for communities. It's problems solved together for the greater good, and which gives us our sense of purpose and belonging. So basically, our place in the tribe. And when we dig a little deeper into that, we think about the soft skills like active listening, like empathy, like checking our biases, coming along with curiosity and positivity. They're all important aspects of helping us to trust each other, challenge each other, solve problems, and grow together. And I'm not even sure how you go about supplementing those with AI. That's a quote from Stephen Hawking. Quite dramatic, maybe for a different talk, but I think the sentiment really holds true. So we need to balance our use of AI in much deeper ways than some of the tools I've mentioned. I think there's a real benefit to embracing productivity gains for individuals and teams through using tools, using AI tools, which helps us reduce that cognitive load and identify problems faster and subsequently find and implement incredible solutions. That helps improve the agility for our teams and organizations. On the other hand, that through experience, we've learned that the greatest barriers to working together are not about technology or tools or even practices. The bigger problems tend to be about how people are. What are their experiences? What are their backgrounds? How do they connect and collaborate with each other? How they speak the same language, understand each other's viewpoints, facing the same direction, check their biases, as I've had to do, and then put their hands up when they take a misstep. Also congratulate each other on the wins that they have, and have each other's backs when things don't go quite to plan. At 5AI, we've got incredibly smart folk with a great depth of understanding when it comes to AI. It's in the name after all, but none of that thinking which we use to make driverless cars has an impact on how we create a high-performing agile organization. I mean, that's why I jumped on board. That's why I've been helping with the transformation over the last 3 years. To sum up, business agility is a human-centric endeavor rather than a technological one. And I believe that's where the majority of our focus needs to be. We should absolutely use any new tools at our disposal, but use them carefully and with a good understanding of what their limitations are. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Ricardo, I think.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Jas. Bang on time. Thank you. Over to you, Ricardo.
Yeah, and I'm not muted, I hope. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely fantastic. And I come to present the positive, the really enthusiastic about AI. And given that I run a website called productivityhacks.ai, no plug intended, you might guess that I have quite a strong point of view here. And thinking that we can not take AI into our organizations is like Kodak thinking that it could avoid digital cameras come about. So I take the perspective that we should find how to use AI and how to make it something that will help us do this, like my previous speaker was saying, help us do the human part and do AI do the parts that are possible for AI to do. That will free up time for us to spend more time with our coaches, with our stakeholders, with the managers, with the people in our company. So I would like to give you a quick demo. This is something that I've done, and I believe it saved like 10 hours. And it's something that I hope you can use in your toolbox. But first of all, so I will share my screen. 1 second. Share, window, share. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I couldn't resist asking AI itself, how can we use you to bring agility to our teams, given that I'm an Agile coach? And if you give it a try, you'll see that when we speak AI, we have been speaking a lot about generative AI, which is what came about last year with the transformer model and with ChatGPT, AI that talks like a person. But if you look, and I hope there is a recording, I'm not going to read what the AI is saying, but there are countless ways from using models to get a lot more data and from using AI as a partner itself in helping us being more productive. So, as you see, there's a lot of an opinion, but the primary goal is to deliver value more effectively. It should be seen as a tool to deliver a goal rather than an end in itself. So the example I want to give you was a workshop. I'm working at this company, telco in Sweden, as an Agile coach. And normally we have a bit of a hard time getting into the managers. We always we work with our teams, we work with the product owners, and I got invited to facilitate a workshop for the managers. So I decided to use AI to give me a hand. So the first thing, which you might never have tried, coming up with a good facilitation can be quite hard. So what am I saying here? I have a 2-hour workshop with 12 managers. They need to align on the 4 biggest issues to solve and come up with a short, mid, and long-term plan. And if you see, these would have taken me to create an hour or 2 of creating this material. And we got a whole plan for a workshop. But I can review this plan and think, looks interesting. But it's still, I think I could add a little flavor to it. Could you add World Cafe flavor? And that's one thing I learned about using AI. Some people try to over-engineer the most perfect prompt, the most perfect question to ask AI. What I found is iterating is the best thing. Ask it something, see the result, and then compose. And you see the World Cafe is a structured conversational process here, how to infuse the World Cafe flavor into the above facilitation plan. And now we can see setting the atmosphere, identifying the issue identification in a World Cafe. It already gave me really good timings for everything. Now, we have to wait a little bit. It's a lot faster than if I did it by hand, but it still has to do it. And then you could go on and ask it to create, for example, a facilitator handbook. Create a facilitator cheat sheet. And then you get a nice printout of everything that you need to run this workshop. So you can focus on what you're good at, which is the interaction with people, but not waste a lot of time creating materials. Then we ran the workshop and we got a lot. You recognize this kind of stuff at the end of a workshop, a lot of Post-its on the wall. And you see here some short, mid, and long terms. But can we still use AI at this point? Well, one thing you could use AI is to scan these Post-its, and that works. I'm not going to demo it. So that could be a way of saving some work, but I already have, and this is the most interesting prompt. If this stays on this sheet of paper, what is going to happen? Do you think anything is going to happen in the organization? What is the outcome of most workshops and retros? People don't do anything about it. So let's try to do something. And it's really good if you engage the participants in doing it. I'm going to create a new chat. And here are the post-its that were on the previous page. And I'm going to ask the AI, based on these post-its, to create a plan, starting with the vision and mission, followed by the outcomes to achieve. Note that we are going from a bullet list that does have the word short term, but it's typical post-its. Decide to stop if we have to. You see, what do you expect as an outcome? So ChatGPT is not a human on the other side. ChatGPT is an amazing text manipulator. If you give ChatGPT a set of information, the one thing that it does amazingly well is to take the input that you gave and reformat it. Like I asked it to reformat it as a plan, I could have asked it to reformat it as a haiku or as a poem in the style of Shakespeare. So I hope this will turn out to be useful to you, that you can use it to prepare your workshops and to massage the outcomes of the workshop. One very important lesson that I learned is that this step you need to do with the participants. You cannot just take the stickies home and then send them an email with this is what you wrote, because they might not recognize it. You have to make it theirs. So embrace AI, but find what you need to use it for. It's for a goal. You can use AI and machine learning models to improve your testing, to improve your CI/CD, or you can use it to improve your own coaching practice. And don't do it because it's AI. Do it because it's something that helps you be more productive and helps you do the things that you're the best at, and to reduce the toil, the repetitive work that you have in your job. And with that, I hand over to the next speaker, who is going to do the gloom and doom scenario.
Yes, exactly. Nice one. Over to you, Adam.
And doom. Yep. I'm all about gloom and doom, I'm afraid. So just while I'm sharing my screen, I do love technology, but I'm playing the anti-technology card today. And I hope I can get all of my argument in the short time limit. My name is Adam Hall. I'm a former Agile coach, and I pivoted to be in AI over the last few years as generative AI models were coming out. I'm also an amateur artist, a talkative technophile, and I love puns. And in fact, if you could just throw in an idea for a theme around that I can pun something with at the end, that would be great, because I love puns. So just, cheese, anything pun related. I've got a motto. It's always a people problem. That's my motto. Oh, is it sharing? Yeah, cool. Right. So in April of 2021, I got my private beta invite to OpenAI. And the first thing I did was I decided to make an application so that I could automate some of my tasks. This is the application I made. You can use it to get your one-word idea for a story, a thing that you want to play in a sprint, for example. And, oh, sorry, I didn't actually put that on the screen. You can generate a user story, as in as a frequent flyer, I want to check in my flights online so that I can avoid long lines at the airport and streamline my travel experience, which is great. You can create user stories without having to have that conversation. But doesn't this miss the point of user stories? I can see Tom Gilb is in the audience. And the whole point of user stories is a card, a conversation, and confirmation. And if we're outsourcing this process to AI, we just risk losing that context and the clarity. And how do you then deliver it efficiently? Empathy. You know, we've always, us humans always have the upper hand on empathy, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. It turns out a recent study showed that ChatGPT has a better bedside manner than physicians, according to healthcare professionals. It also is better quality than physicians, and that was a recent study. So all I can say is, uh-oh, art. I'm going to go back to art. I'm an amateur artist. I now use Midjourney to make art. Most of the images you'll see in this presentation are from AI. This is a piece of art that I made over the last couple of years. It did rather well. It went viral. And I didn't really control why it went viral. It turns out the directors of the Avengers found it and shared it on Instagram. So I had my 5 minutes of fame, which was lovely. But it did come with some unexpected consequences. It turns out people don't like AI. They're quite resistant to it. AI art is shit, according to some people. And this was sent to me on Christmas Day. That's lovely. So you'll hear a lot of this sentiment from around the internet. AI is polarizing people's opinions. So this particular person is very upset, and they think the board of companies that stole billions of dollars of IP should be put in prison for life. And while we're talking about litigation, the companies that are currently being sued for alleged breaches of IP law are quite numerous, but I won't go into that. I will go into the recent legal case. In June of this year, 2 New York lawyers were fined after unwittingly submitting a legal brief containing fake case citations hallucinated by our friend ChatGPT. Which just goes to show it's quite dangerous if you don't understand how these things work. Cool, right, so moving on, inequality. The Luddites. So people see anti-AI sentiment as Ludditism. So the Luddites began in Nottinghamshire in 1811. They tried to get rid of new machinery that was making them unemployed by basically mechanizing the way that they worked. If you look at how people were compensated around that period, you saw 2 generations of inequality when wage growth stagnated despite GDP going up. So what about now? Well, recently, you would have seen that the top 1% share of income over years has massively increased whenever there's been huge innovations. The rich get richer as a result of these sort of innovations. So what about AI? Why would it be any different? That's my question. Working standards. This is a picture of a mechanical Turk. It's an automaton that played chess in 1770. I'll come back to that in a moment. First, I'll ask, how is AI trained? It uses data, and we need lots of data so that AI can decide the correct version of the output that it's going to be producing. How is the data prepared? People. So just like the mechanical Turk, it needed a person sitting in a box to actually wave the things and make the mechanical Turk look like it was really playing chess, when actually it was people behind the scenes. Now, I'm not saying that AI is actually people behind the scenes, but to create the data, we need people to clean and classify the data to ensure that the outputs are high enough quality to be learnt by a machine. So how do we find the right people? Well, interestingly, Amazon have a nice service called Mechanical Turk. Now, Mechanical Turk allows you to hire individuals worldwide to perform tasks through a bidding system. And the system incentivizes the maximum amount of work for the minimal amount of pay, often resulting in individuals basically bidding on a race to the bottom to get that work. So there is no protection of minimum wage, there's no hourly limits, and there's no age limits. So it's a great system of exploitation. And I don't know if there's a mark of, companies that have used this versus the companies that haven't. Of course, there is an alternative way. You could just find somebody who will do it for you for free. Anyway, when everybody's when there's a race to the moral bedrock, you should ensure that you aren't the only person left digging a hole, which is why NVIDIA seems to be sitting on the moral high ground here. Sell the shovels. I'm going to talk about bias now. So in 2015, Amazon developed a recruitment tool designed to efficiently sift through CVs and decide the best people to put forward for roles. Unfortunately, the data that they used was the hires that they'd made in the past. So the tool inadvertently replicated organizational biases. Fortunately, they discontinued the tool prior to integration, but it would have meant you got hired if you were male. Not good. So basically, we have to rely on companies to be the moral high ground. If you actually look, all the large language models do have a political bias. So there's no such thing as a neutral large language model. What about humans? We're also susceptible to bias. There's automation bias, sunk cost fallacy. So if you actually create some text from your prompts, you're more likely to just not want to get rid of it because you've already created it. Another one is the anchoring effect, which is basically where you try to use the first output that you agree with, even if it contains hallucinations. It's also bad for the environment, but I can see I'm out of time. So I'm just going to go to misinformation. Did we get any ideas for a pun? I want some pun ideas. I'll go for trees unless I can see anything in the chat. So the other exciting thing about AI is you can use it to generate novel interfaces that allow us to deep fake our friends and co-workers. So rather than me concluding, I've actually set up a 3-minute chat with Jess yesterday, and I was able to create a digital version of Jess who will now conclude for me.
Using AI can be seen as barking up the wrong tree due to concerns such as outsourcing humanity, creating capability gaps and polarization, decimating intellectual property, increasing economic divide, and setting unethical work standards. It also plants seeds of misinformation, perpetuates bias, accelerates climate issues, and may encourage a robot takeover, possibly leaving us in the woods. It's crucial to root out these issues, or we may not see the forest for the trees in the impact of AI.
So I will conclude with my own thing. It's always a people problem until it's an AI problem, and that's a big problem. Thank you.
Nice one. Hearing your own voice in a robot form. Interesting one. Thanks, Adam. Big round of applause for all of the speakers. Big thank you. I know it was hard in kind of the 8 minutes to kind of condense all of your insights and kind of share them with the audience, but some great things to start thinking about, experimenting with, and some scary things too. We're going to open up to Q&A now, so we'll still have all of our speakers and we'll get some views on some different questions on what everyone's interested in. So again, slido.com, #agility. You can submit your questions there, and don't forget to thumbs up the questions that you want answered, because I'll be reading from the top voted questions first. So we'll kick off. So if an AI can get as good as ChatGPT, it can get as good as a person, and then the sky's the limit, and we'll be drooling monkeys by comparison. So why risk it? Does anyone from the panel want to answer that one, or have a go of sharing some thoughts on that one?
I'll have a go.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main reasons I work for our overlords. Eventually, we will be just the monkeys under control, and hopefully I'm on the right side. So that's why I do it.
Yeah.
Nice one.
I totally agree. The cat is out of the bag. Trying to put it back in, you're going to get really scratched.
Love it. Adam, what about you? Any thoughts?
I think, well, I've kind of said it looks bad. So I think what we've got to understand is where we add value. So right now, I'm telling my children who are all at school, construction, physical things probably have a longer shelf life, probably have a longer life than thought work and knowledge work.
Yeah, I was really disappointed that my son decided to become a tattoo artist until ChatGPT came about. Then I said, go, go, go. That's the future profession.
Absolutely.
Nice one. Okay, we've got another one, 3 votes. What are the potential unintended consequences of AI adoption for agility, and how can they be mitigated? Any thoughts on this one?
I'll go again then. I mean, I think that if you're using a lot of if there's a heavy reliance on AI, I think there's going to be this idea that AI can solve everything and solve all our problems, and we start to forget or really pare back on our human interactions, on the things that actually create. I mean, this is about business agility and how we can create high performing teams. So I think if we go too far that way, and we might forget things that we're useful in terms of tools or parts of our, I guess, personality, our ability to connect with others, that might not be things that we want to lose. I think to mitigate that, I think that the focus has got to be, or the balance has got to be, where is this right and where is it not right? How I kind of end my talk.
Yeah. I'll quote Adam and say the problem is always the people. I think the biggest problem will be trying to use AI for what it's not meant to be. First of all, AI is evolving and it will always be changing. The current AI that we have doesn't really replace people. It looks like it could replace people because it sounds like a person, but it cannot tell truth from wrong at all. The only way you have to limit it is by making it dumber. So you can say to an AI, only use the information that is in these 100 pages and now summarize it. Then, even then, it might make up something. Hallucination is a big problem. So I see the tendency of thinking, maybe we can now use AI to prioritize our backlog. Well, then, or maybe even to create our backlog. Then it will have a really well hallucinated backlog. On the other hand, if we use it for what it's meant for, it can save a lot of stupid work that we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mike, you got your hand up. Yeah.
I just want to say that I respectfully, partially disagree.
Good.
It seems to me that agile coaching and agile practices often try to help teams become better at delivering value, but delivering value is still the end goal. If AI can deliver that value without needing to go through the mindset change that human beings need, then actually we could quite legitimately use AI to realize that end goal and not have to go through things like, let me try and think of an example. Psychological safety. AI doesn't need psychological safety, but teams certainly do. So inculcating that in a team may be at times unneeded if what you're going to use is a fancy Monte Carlo simulation in order to see when we can deliver a certain amount of work. So I think we also need to realize that AI can help us bypass a lot of our human frailties. And sometimes it's wrong to do that because you're right, we want to build a team. So we need the solution that fits the problem, I think is probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. We need to use screwdrivers for screws and hammers for nails.
Yeah, interesting one, Mike.
No pun intended.
Thanks for sharing. No pun intended.
Sorry, I just want to say one thing on history, because whenever people talk about unintended consequences, I like to dwell on history because it helps us. So When the book was invented, Plato said, "This is really dangerous. It's going to be devastating to our intelligence." What actually happened was we had the ability to share information. When the internet was invented, everybody was like, "Oh, we're all going to be dumbed down." But the reality is we got the ability to process a lot more information. I think the unintended consequences were things like the mental processing, the amount of drain that these technologies have. So it's very hard to predict unintended consequences, but we have to spot them as they're happening. I think that's the key. Get good at understanding what's happening to humanity as it happens.
Yeah.
Nice one. We've got quite a few more questions, so we'll get through a couple more. What happens when the AI content generated and available on the internet vastly outnumbers human created content?
Can I? So
yeah.
So we have been writing content for robots for a long time. SEO optimization is writing content for robots. We now have the ability to get robots to write content for robots, which means we get to have an internet renaissance. So the future is conversational interaction for me, I think. Conversational interaction with services, not websites. Websites were just a placeholder while the technology caught up. So I think the future is all about interacting with companies to get things done.
Yeah. And one of the unintended consequences of having so much AI-generated content is that there is a theory that AIs will start getting dumber because it will start creating like a negative feedback loop by reading so much what each of them wrote. So that could be another unintended consequence. And then those services won't be quite as nice as you want, Adam. But I'm pretty sure we'll put some AIs trying to sort out the AI content from the non-AI content so that they can be trained on the right stuff.
Gotcha. And then we've got another question on the other side, like just because a chatbot and image generating AI was put into the hands of millions, aren't we getting carried away by a shiny new technology? What are our perspectives on this one?
Yeah. The question is, did we get any closer to artificial general intelligence, AGI? I think we took one step, but I also don't believe that we are 3 years away from AGI, but I'm not sure.
And I also think the reason why we're getting carried away is because companies have been able to use these services and actually turn into commercial entities. So there's been, I think, the last count was 2,000 successful businesses have been made as a result of ChatGPT. And that's quite exciting. So there must be something in it if people are willing to pay for these services.
Absolutely agreed. What about you, Jas? Any thoughts on that one? Shiny new technology?
Shiny new technology, and I work in trying to build driverless car systems, so it's all very shiny. And I mean, when we talk about data, the immense amounts of data that is created and absorbed, and we try and put that into a system that will help drive the car itself is incredible. But I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier is it's this shiny new technology. If it solves a problem for us, we will gravitate towards it. It doesn't matter whether it is AI or is something else that's helping get towards that, but it's something new and shiny that we think, oh, that's going to make my life better or my experience better or or whatever it is improve. Then we're going to gravitate towards that regardless, and we have done since since I was tiny. Every new innovation has been just grabbed on, and as Adam pointed out, so sometimes it's goes the wrong way for a while until we see a correction, and AI will probably do the same.
Makes a lot of sense. How might AI facilitate kind of responsiveness to changing market conditions. Do we have any views on how it might help us better do that? Adaptability, change, adapt to it quicker.
It can surely help you play out different scenarios as response to the... There are two things. Our current large language models are so expensive to train and take so long to train that they don't know, in the AI way of knowing, by being on its weights, anything that is more recent than a year. So natively not. But the ability of the AI to generate responses to scenarios and help us to do what ifs driven by us. Oh, yes.
Yeah, in the car space, where again, I'll talk about cars, but we're trying to get AI to really mimic human driving behavior. And that's really difficult because it's complex and it's vast. And we're kind of crazy because we don't stick to rules. But how can we get the AI to do that? And therefore we can put that in a simulator so that we can understand what's the real conditions on the road. And if we could do that, then we can look at how drivers' abilities are changing and how their responsiveness is changing. Not quite market conditions, but kind of they are our customer. So we could adapt our systems as, because people kind of think, oh, driverless cars, one day somebody will flick a switch and everyone will be driving in these cars. Well, it's not going to happen like that. It's going to be a journey along the way where you're going to have both on the road. You're going to have some driverless with some driverless systems, plus you're going to have us crazy humans driving cars, ignoring stoplights and all that kind of stuff. So it will change, and I think we'll have to program and adapt AI to help us with those conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, any thoughts on this one?
I think just thinking back to the amount of organizations that are setting up, quite a lot of them are one-person shops. So the ability for generative AI to really give people superpowers to start organizations, test the water, and if it's successful, you lean in. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is just the science, the data science, so actually being driven by data rather than gut feelings. I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We might have time for one more. So we've got another one that's voted for one. So we might end on this one. Mr. Musk wanted to have AI regulation. Can governments should governments create law of what AI should and should not do, keeping balance of both? What do we think?
Anyone that is tired of clicking GDPR warnings knows how efficient government regulation is. By the time government finishes to write the regulations for AI, the next new kind of AI will have been invented. So I don't think it's the government that will be able. It's us, the consumers and companies, that are going to fight it out in the market, maybe to good, maybe to bad consequences. But I think government intervention is probably not the one thing that can solve this one.
Interesting. So how do you think it should be managed? Yeah, go Adam, go for it.
Well, I think you're completely right. At the moment, the pace of government isn't fast enough, but I do think we need to, that needs to be changed, because the alternative is it will be fought out by companies and the consumer. And I don't think the consumer really has a choice. It's basically what the companies decide to do. So it's interesting times. So I think as my advice to anyone is look for the ethical considerations of the businesses that you're buying into, understand their AI principles, and go for the ones, vote with your feet on the ones that make sense.
That makes
Lucy had her hand up.
Yeah, Lucy.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I don't know, it's a bit a strong thing to say, but I mean, if we're going to talk about data ethics and AI ethics, we can get some good lessons from looking at medical ethics. And I don't know what anybody else thinks here, but if we don't think that big pharma, for example, has been effectively regulated and are obliged to conduct their clinical research, for example, and to run their businesses in a way that's beneficial to humanity, maybe we should think very carefully about how we instigate a regulation on AI, because it's at least as powerful. I mean, government can't. See, this is a bit strong, actually, but I'm going to say it anyway. Government can't actually stop people making autonomous weapons. Right. So, how are we going to stop this robot takeover is another question. I'm a big fan, right? But, we don't have a brilliant track record. This is what I'm saying, of regulating things for the best interest of the community.
Thanks for sharing, Lucy. Any thoughts on that one?
I mean, take COVID. The response was as fast as it needed to be. I'm not saying it was perfect, but we got through it. And I think this is the thing, when problems present themselves, we will pull together. But I think it's a shame that we're not seeing more urgency in that area. So I both agree, but I also don't think it will completely swamp us. I'm hoping.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Norbert, you've got your hand up. Lucky last before we go to the poll again and then close off with some feedback. Should we go for it?
Okay. I'm Norbert from London. I study AI and machine learning. Actually, on just my question, one comment on the topic, like how to regulate or control AI in that competition, which is possible. So if there's like Europe right after the Brexit is crashing. So because the Chinese threat is so, they are very advanced. So like to control and regulate AI in that AI race with China, I don't think so. Like at least we have been in this part of the world. And actually
breaking in and out for me. Is that just me or is that for everyone?
Everyone. I think the AI is trying to censor him.
No, but you're breaking in and out. So I don't know if you want to put your comment in the chat or something, but we can only hear every couple words. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think I understood where you were going, which is that the governments that try to regulate AI in their territory are going to cause the companies in those countries to slow down so much that other countries that don't regulate it are going to overtake them. And that makes it that it's nearly impossible to regulate AI. It's kind of this feeling of just like nuclear weapons, we just need more and more and more. If any country said we don't want nuclear weapons, then the others would build. Was that the direction you were going, Norbert?
We might.
Guys, sorry. Sorry, guys. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Yeah, we can hear you. We've only got about 2 minutes left, and we're going to cast the poll again and get some feedback. But if there's any final comment from your side, sorry, we're under time pressure.
My main thoughts was like about the competition with China in the AI race. So that's I don't think so that AI can be regulated. Otherwise, the Chinese they're going to take over everything. That's because the Chinese threat is so big right now due to the advancements, and they won't regulate at all. They want to rule the world. I study AI and machine learning actually in London, and that's right now it's a very, very hot topic these days.
Yeah.
So how to regulate, because Europe without England, they are trying to regulate, and Germany is right now in a big trouble due to technology. So
yeah,
it's very, 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 it's a double-edged
problem to solve.
Yeah.
Hard problem to solve. We've definitely pivoted to kind of AI and regulation rather than how it impacts agility. But it's been a very interesting discussion across all the panelists. So big thank you for all, and thank you for all kind of the questions as we went through as well.